At 19 years old, I was standing with my hands up in the air in cargo shorts and a t-shirt in a gravel parking lot with a bottle of Coke and a bag of chips dropped on the ground next to me, staring at three men, fingers on triggers, guns pointed at me, screaming at me in Creole. I don't speak Creole. In the middle of Haiti. When I was a sophomore in undergrad, I went to Haiti on a mission trip with the campus youth group, and the last thing that my mom wanted me to do was go to Haiti on a mission trip with the campus youth group. And I remember telling her, I'll be fine. And I was standing there with my hands up just outside this convenience store because we stopped there on the way out of the capital city, Port-au-Prince, before we headed out to the countryside to do our work. And I remember standing there with my hands up in the air thinking, I'll be fine. You can call me stupid, that's fair. But as I stood there thinking that, the men started to approach closer, and their yelling started to become more aggravated. Their gun shaking became a bit more vigorous. And I again remember thinking, I'll be fine. And I said in the only Creole that I knew, I don't speak Creole, I'm American. It did not go over how I thought it was going to go over. They became even more mad. The guy in the middle got closer to me. At that point, he was about 5 feet away from me, and he used his gun to give me the signal to get down on my knees. And so then, through my thick skull, it finally clicked, I may not be fine. And so I got down on my knees, and as my second knee hit the gravel, I saw a change in tone in their face. I noticed a change in tone in their voices, in their screaming. And all of a sudden, I heard a voice behind me, and our translator for our group had come out of the convenience store. He started talking to them, explained to them why we were there, what we were doing there. And the guy closest to me, as their yelling came down, the guns dropped, put his foot in my chest, shoved me backwards along the gravel. They turned around, took off, and bolted. That was day one of my 10 days in Haiti. That trip changed me in a lot of ways. One of the most significant changes was it transformed a 19-year-old kid who took risks because he felt like he'd be fine no matter what, into a person who makes sure that I know what to do, I can deal with scenarios that don't go well before I take the risk. I'm an only child. Don't hold that against me, please. I promise, I'll share. I'm not great at sharing, but I'll share today. As an only child, I rocked the imaginary friend. I had the best imaginary friend ever. We did really cool stuff together. I was the best, and then my imaginary friend was clearly the second best, at everything we did. And when I got old enough to trade in my imaginary friend for reality, I immediately embraced the value of friendship. I embraced the word friend. I covet the word friend, probably to a fault. And when I was 35 years old, I went to the third funeral for a friend of mine who had committed suicide. And I think about those three guys all the time. I think about what they were going through, what they were thinking. And every time I think about them, I know that I'll never know exactly what they were going through, exactly what they were thinking. But I am confident that they were not fine and that they didn't know what to do. And I think about them a lot. And I think about my friends today who struggle. I think about my students. I'm a high school teacher. I think about my students who struggle, who fail, who don't know what to do. I think about my family members who struggle. And every time I think about that, there are two recurring emotions, sadness and madness. And a few years ago, as I was thinking about it, I realized that I had two options. I could go on being sad and mad, or I could get up and do something about it. And option one wasn't real attractive to me, so I went with option two. But I wanted to do something about it in a way where I could help more than just my friends, more than just my family, more than just my students. So I took to Twitter, not to tell everybody what I had for breakfast that day, but to use Twitter and to leverage it to create Get Up Living, an account where I channel motivational thoughts, tweets, tips on how to deal with struggles, how to deal with failure, what to do, tools to bounce back from failures and struggles, so that anybody who wants to, not just my friends and family, most of my family doesn't even know what Twitter is, but so that all of them, anyone out there, can use those tools to have the power to not just get up from the failure, but to allow them to get up and take the risk in the first place. There's such a strong sentiment out here in this world today to try to convince kids to push themselves, to go beyond their comfort zones, to try new things. And I love the sentiment. I have a problem with the word convince, because when we convince somebody to do something, we may be forcing them into a situation that they are not necessarily prepared for. Instead of convincing kids to push themselves outside their comfort zones, instead of convincing kids to try to go further than they've ever gone before, we need to face the reality that they may not actually get it done. And if they don't, are they equipped to handle it? Convincing is great if they don't fail. But what if they do? We need to equip kids to take the risks, so that if it doesn't go their way, they've got a plan. This question's all over the place. I see this question a lot. I hear this question a lot, right? What would you attempt to do if you knew that you could not fail? That's a crap question. That's a Fantasyland question. That question belongs hanging out in Fantasyland right next to, what if unicorns actually were real? My daughter's watching now. She's going, unicorns aren't real? Sorry, baby. We've got to face the reality that we could fail. Certain scenarios, lower risk of failing than other scenarios, for sure. But no matter what we try, no matter what we do, there's a risk of failing. And when we choose to do something, we choose to do it because either we believe nothing can go wrong, foolish 19-year-old moron walking out of the convenience store without the rest of the group, or we're comfortable that we know what to do if something does go wrong. The real question is in red. Would you attempt to do it if you knew you could fail? Do you have the tools if you do fail? And I'm not trying to be negative up here. But we need to help our kids, our students, our youth be prepared. We can't tell them that they will definitely succeed. We for sure want to help them believe that they can succeed. But they also need to be aware that they might not. And it's okay if they've got the tools to deal with it. And it's on us to share, to spread, to fill their recovery toolbox, because the apprehension that they have when they're not choosing to take a risk, when they're not choosing to push themselves outside their comfort zones, that apprehension is real. It's a product of having an empty toolbox of recovery. We have tools in our toolbox for recovering. Kids don't have as many. Sometimes we as adults don't have as many as we'd like. We need to spread those tools, share those tools out, equip each other with the tools to get up from the failure so that we can empower each other to get up and take the risks. Hank Aaron, one of the greatest hitters of all time, shares his tool for failure that he encountered all the time. One of the greatest hitters of all time, he only succeeded about 30% of the time, 30.5 to be exact, which means he failed 70% of the time. And he shares his tool with us. When you swing and miss, keep swinging. That simple yet effective quote, powerful quote, is his way of sharing his tool with all of us. When we swing and miss, we've got two options. That's about it. We can either stop swinging, which will guarantee that we never swing and miss again. Which sounds pretty comforting. But it also eliminates all possibility of getting a hit. Option two is we can swing again. Not because we're going to get a hit. We're actually more likely not going to get a hit. But because we could. And if we don't, then we've got a plan. We're going to swing again. Hank uses his success and what he learned about how to deal with the failures along achieving success and shares that out with us in this quote. This is one of my favorite smiles on earth. Man, I'm biased, of course. But this is one of the greatest smiles on earth. And I look at this smile and I think about how can this smile ever be sad? 3 years ago, my son came home from kindergarten and the standard conversation began with me saying, "How was school?" And before I really finished saying that, I started formulating my next question because I knew I needed to ask another one to actually find out how school was after he gives me the standard good response. But he button hooked me. He said, "I don't want to go back to kindergarten again. I spilled my milk at lunch, and all the kids started laughing at me." I was not ready for that. So I immediately started thinking, okay, how am I going to respond and help him do things so that he doesn't spill his milk again? And luckily, I paused long enough to give him enough time to say one more thing. He said, "I don't like it when the kids laugh at me." Because he didn't care about spilling his milk. He knew, way smarter than I was at 19 years old walking out of that convenience store, thank goodness he gets his brains from his mother. He knew that no matter how good he got at not spilling his milk, we could sit in front of milk for hours and practice not spilling it. He could become the greatest non-milk spiller on earth. But he knew that there was always going to be that chance, that what if. So he didn't care about getting better at spilling his milk. He cared about the fact that he didn't like being laughed at. So I scrapped the "let's not spill your milk again" response. I said, "Bubba, you and your friends love laughing together and hanging out, right? So here's what you're going to do. Next time your friends are laughing at you, you're going to start laughing. Because the moment you start laughing, now they're laughing with you. And by default, they are not laughing at you." And his eyes dried up a little bit and widened, and the light bulb went on, and that full smile didn't come back, but there was a smirk. And he was good to go back to kindergarten that next day. Now, if I didn't give him that tool, I'm not saying he was going to become the youngest dropout in American history, but I'm saying that he may not have gone back and loved school the way that he loves school right now. And all I did was shared a simple tool with him to deal with the failure, not to prevent the failure. Preventing the failure is never going to happen. You can never guarantee that the failure will be eliminated. But having the tool to deal with it, if it happens, empowers us to be able to move forward and get up and take those risks. Hank Aaron uses his celebrityness. I don't even know if that's a word. It is now. He uses it to spread his tool, to spread what he's learned, to share and pass on that amazing tool of keep on swinging. We're not as lucky as Hank Aaron. We're not as famous. We're not as big. We're not as fancy. We're not nearly as rich. But we all have a duty and a natural ability to help each other get up from failure, to help each other through struggles, to give, to share out. Don't put a patent on the things you've learned when it comes to dealing with failure. Keep that stuff open source. Give it to your friends. Whether you're a teacher or a classmate or a parent or a brother or a sister or a godmother or a godfather, share those strengths out. Help each other get up from struggles. Help each other bounce back. Copy-paste those tools on to your friends. Equip your neighbors with the strength and power to get through and bounce back from failures. Keep getting up. Get up and risk. Get up and take chances. Get up from failures. And more importantly, get up and help other people get up. Thank you.